Okay, so the next step before I launch is to assemble a motor. And this specific motor I'm assembling is a L2500 Super Thunder. So I'm gonna unpack my liner. And the instructions say to wipe out the inside of it with a paper towel. So that's what I'm doing. One of the most important steps is to dry fit the grains to make sure they slide freely through. That way you don't get one accidentally stuck halfway in when you're gluing them. And these fit nicely. Okay, so the next step is going to be gluing the grains in. So this type of glue, the Glue On Max, it cures with moisture, and I've heard it both ways. They say not to wipe the inside with water, but when I talked to Carl, he said that you could wipe it with a damp cloth. And since I live in a place with such low humidity, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. That's like, I need more glue. So I'll put my grain spacer O-ring in, and we continue the process with the second grain. So it was also recommended that I grease just the inside of this, just so the glue doesn't stick. Make sure everything's seated. The next morning, after the glue had time to cure, I finished assembling the motor. I started by greasing the big O-rings, one of which is for the nozzle and the other is for the forward closure. I then greased one side of the smoke grain. This grease side goes into the forward closure when you push the smoke grain assembly in. I then greased the threads on the forward closure, placed on the O-ring, slid the outer casing onto the motor, and screwed on the forward closure. Next, I placed the nozzle O-ring around the nozzle, greased the threads on the aft closure, and screwed the motor together. There was a little gap between the aft closure and the casing, which is part of the motor's design. So the first thing I did when I got to the launch site was I added new Duracell batteries to my electronics bay. I then started closing the bay up, and due to the tight tolerances and hand-drilled holes, I had to wiggle the bulk plate to get it seated correctly. I then connected the corresponding charge wires. I made sure to label the wires so that the main and backup charges were connected to the correct boards. One of the solder joints broke on the GPS module. Luckily, I had some spare Wago connectors lying around. These connectors are awesome because they just clamp to the wires and make for a quick fix. You don't need any special tools, all you need to do is strip the wires. I then started packing both the drogue and main parachute sections with dog barf, which is just treated housing insulation. The dog barf in combination with the Nomex blankets increased the chance that the black powder charges would not burn the parachutes. I decided to use nylon M4 shear pins to keep the sections connected during flight. Now here you can see me packing the deployment bag. This is where my fatal mistake came into play. You can see the deployment bag is attached to that upper section. The hope was that the slack in the system would pull this deployment bag off. After I inserted the deployment bag into the rocket, I screwed on the last of the shear pins and it was ready for launch.
Yeah, well,
It's not.
fine. Here we are.
Pad is armed. Going in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Baby, that's good. Right there.
There's the drogue. That's the drogue.
There we go. There's the backup. It's not inflating.
Right there. We're in ground stop.
Waves.
Come down hard.
I don't know.
Pick it up. Let's see if... Looks fine.
Oh no.
Oh. Yep, it's broken, dude.
Is that done for? Or can you fix that?
I think it's done.
Dude, imagine trying to find this thing without a GPS.
So
3894.